Reborn. I took my winter supplies and left. She laughed until the campus closed for a week. The first time I died. My roommate wore my red parka to the emergency shelter. I recognized it through the blur of falling snow as the shuttle pulled away from Maple Ridge student apartments. The coat had a strip of reflective tape on the left sleeve because I had repaired a tear after my first winter in Buffalo. Madison stood by the window, warm inside the jacket I had bought with 3 weeks of pharmacy wages, and stared down at her phone while the bus crawled toward the main road. She never looked back. I was on the second floor landing behind the locked glass doors, feverish, dehydrated, and wrapped in a thin college sweatshirt. The portable charger I had bought was in Madison's tote bag. So were my fever reducers, my emergency blanket, my electrolyte packets, my hand warmers, my flashlight, and the last of the protein bars. She had told me another shuttle would come. It did not. By midnight, the power had failed in half the building. The baseboard heaters went cold. Wind drove patterned snow through the old window frames, and the temperature in the apartment dropped 1 degree at a time. I tried to call the county emergency line, but my phone was at 3% and the signal kept disappearing. Madison had locked my food and medicine in her bedroom 3 days earlier. She called it a community supply center. She had taken photographs of my shelves, posted them under the caption "People over Possessions," and then handed my groceries to whichever student had enough followers to make her look generous. The ordinary people in the building paid her $5 for 2 cans of soup, $10 for a pack of hand warmers, $25 for my compact power bank. When I demanded my things back, she filmed me from the doorway and asked why I cared more about property than people. On the 4th night of the storm, I could no longer keep water down. I put on canvas sneakers because Madison had taken my snow boots too. I left the apartment to search for help, one hand against the brick wall so the wind would not spin me around. The snow was already above my knees. I made it less than 2 blocks when the county plow crew found me. 3 days later, Madison had already posted a 20-minute video titled "The Roommate Who Chose Her Stuff Over Survival." She told the camera I had suffered from hoarding anxiety. She said I had refused to share. She said I had rejected the shelter shuttle because I could not bear to leave my possessions behind. The red parka was hanging behind her while she cried. Her video reached 4 million views before my mother was notified of my death. Madison received a Student Creator Award, a sponsorship from an outdoor company, and more than $30,000 in donations for what she called a winter mutual aid project. I received a paragraph in a campus email reminding students to seek counseling. The last thing I remembered was lying beneath a crust of snow and understanding that Madison had stolen more than my food, my medicine, and my chance to survive. She had stolen the explanation of my death. Then I opened my eyes and heard her laughing. "Are you preparing for a snowstorm or the apocalypse?" I was sitting on the living room carpet at Maple Ridge. The shelves in front of me were full. Cans of soup stood in neat rows, along with oatmeal, pasta, crackers, electrolyte powder, batteries, hand warmers, and first aid supplies covering the floor around my knees. My red parka hung beside the front door. Madison held her phone at arm's length, filming herself with my supplies in the background. My hands began to shake. For 1 terrible second, I felt snow packed against my face. My lungs remembered trying to breathe through ice. My fingers remembered going numb. Then the apartment heater clicked on, and warm air moved across my cheek. I looked at the date on Madison's phone screen, December 7th, 10 days before the storm. Madison turned the camera toward me. She had glossy brown hair, a cream lounge set, and the expression she always used when she wanted her viewers to join her in laughing at someone. "Claire bought enough food for a bunker," she told the live stream. "This is what anxiety marketing does to people. Buffalo gets snow every year, but the grocery stores convince everyone they're one weather alert away from civilization ending." In my first life, I had defended myself. I had explained lake effect snow bans, travel bans, pharmacy closures, and how quickly roads south of the city could become impossible. I had told her about the winter when my mother and I lost power for 4 days. I had let her turn my fear into entertainment. This time I picked up the receipt lying beside my knee. "Are you preparing for the apocalypse?" she asked again. "Neither. I said. I'm preparing to move. Her smile stayed in place for half a second too long. The comments on her screen accelerated. Drama. Did she finally snap? Take the beans, girl. Madison laughed as if I had delivered a joke for her benefit. Claire threatens to move whenever I tell her she's overreacting. I did not correct her. I opened the camera on my own phone and photographed the receipt. Then I photographed every item on the floor. Madison lowered her phone. What are you doing? Making an inventory. Of canned beans. Of what belongs to me. The laughter left her eyes. She turned her camera back toward herself and told her viewers she would return after breakfast. The live stream ended. And her voice changed immediately. Don't make this weird. I looked at her and remembered the locked bedroom door. The empty medicine cabinet. The red coat disappearing in a shuttle window. I'm making it accurate. I said. She folded her arms. We share household supplies. We use some of the same things. That isn't the same as owning them together. You bought all of this for the apartment. I bought it because a storm is coming. So it stays here. There it was. Not surprise. Not embarrassment. Certainty. In Madison's mind. Anything I bought for a possible emergency had already become hers. I picked up a black permanent marker and wrote my initials and the purchase date on the underside of the first storage bin. You're being passive-aggressive. She said. No. I'm being specific. I spent the next 4 hours documenting everything. I created a spreadsheet with item name, quantity, price, payment method, receipt number, and storage location. I photographed barcodes and serial numbers on the power banks, emergency radio, rechargeable lantern, and compact battery station. I downloaded purchase confirmations from the pharmacy employee portal. I copied my bank statements into a new cloud folder and changed the password. Madison studied me. In my first life, I had confused generosity with the absence of records. I had believed keeping receipts would make me petty. Madison had weaponized that shame better than I did. Whenever I asked her to replace something, she acted as if calculating money between friends was a moral failure. It's just one box of cold medicine. It's just breakfast. Why are you counting granola bars? Normal people don't invoice their roommates. So I stopped counting. She did not. She always knew exactly what I had. At noon, I called Naomi Brooks from campus. Naomi was a graduate student in environmental health, years older than me, and one of the few people who never treated preparation as a personality defect. I need a favor. I said. Do you need me to cover your shift? Not yet. I need a witness while I pack and move some personal property. There was a pause. Did Madison take something again? The word again tightened my throat. Naomi knew about the charger Madison had borrowed for a music festival and returned with a cracked casing. She knew about the prescription-strength hand cream that disappeared from my locker and appeared in Madison's beauty routine video. She knew Madison had once entered the pharmacy and asked whether my employee discount could be used for her followers. She hasn't taken anything today. I said. I want to keep it that way. Friday. Where are you moving? I haven't signed yet. Then maybe start with that. I almost laughed. Naomi always brought a conversation back to the next concrete action. I will after the call. I searched the student housing board. The listing I remembered was still there. Winter sublet. Private studio. December through May. The studio was on the 3rd floor of a brick building near St. Catherine Medical Center, less than half a mile from a fire station. The owner was a nursing student leaving for a clinical placement in Rochester. The building had a backup generator for hallway lights, secured entry, modern windows, and an on-site superintendent. In my first life, I had seen the post and decided the rent was too high. Moving would have meant paying an extra deposit. Madison had also spent an hour telling me the neighborhood was boring and the studio too small. I had stayed at Maple Ridge to save $400. Then I died. I messaged the owner and asked to view the studio that afternoon. Madison wandered into the kitchen while I was putting the last receipts into a folder. She opened the refrigerator, stared inside, and said, "Did you use the oat milk? I don't drink oat milk." "Then where is it? You finished it yesterday." She frowned as though the empty carton had betrayed her. "Can you pick up more after work?" "No." Her head came around. "Why not?" "Because you want it. We both use groceries. Not oat milk. It's $3. Then buying it should be easy. She stared at me, searching for the Claire who would apologize and add oat milk to her list. I zipped my receipt folder closed. You're in a mood, she said. I'm in a schedule. The studio was small, clean, and quiet. Its main room held a bed, a narrow desk, and a kitchenette with 2 burners. The radiator clanked when it started, but the windows did not leak air. A printed emergency plan was posted beside the elevator. The superintendent, Mr. Darnell, lived on the ground floor. The nursing student showed me the building's generator panel and the shelf where she stored flashlights. It won't run the whole apartment if the grid goes down, she explained, but it keeps the lights, entry system, and 1 outlet in each unit active. The hospital usually gets priority restoration too. How soon can I move in? Friday, if the landlord approves your application. The same day I had told Madison. I paid the application fee and submitted my income verification before I left the building. By the time I reached the pharmacy for my evening shift, the landlord had sent a lease. I read every line twice. Separate utilities. No shared liability. No roommate. Month-to-month term. I signed that night. Lake State University sent the first weather advisory. Meteorologists were monitoring the possibility of a significant lake effect event the following week. Students were advised to watch official updates and prepare for changing travel conditions. Madison read the email aloud from the couch. Significant lake effect event, she said in a deep announcer voice. They always make weather sound like a military operation. I saved the email as a PDF. She watched me. You're not actually moving because of snow, are you? I'm moving because I signed a lease. Without talking to me. My bedroom lease is separate from yours. Maple Ridge marketed itself as student housing, but every tenant rented an individual bedroom and shared common areas. Madison and I had separate agreements. It was one reason the rent was high, and for the first time I was grateful for it. We chose this place together, she said. You chose it because it had good natural light for filming. I agreed because the bus stopped outside. So you're just leaving me with a random roommate. Management said they won't fill the room until January unless you request it. That's not the point. What is the point? Her mouth opened, then closed. The point was that I paid for the internet upgrade. I stocked the kitchen. I replaced trash bags before they ran out. I kept over-the-counter medicine in labeled containers. I remembered batteries, sidewalk salt, paper towels, laundry detergent, and every other invisible thing that made a home function. The point was that Madison had mistaken unpaid labor for atmosphere. People will think we had a fight, she said finally. Did we? You're acting hostile. I signed a studio lease after making a dramatic inventory in front of your audience. You put me in front of your audience. She blinked. I had never said it that plainly before. You know, I film in the living room, she said. You know, I live in it. The following morning, I went to the Maple Ridge office before class. Mrs. Alvarez, the property manager, wore silver glasses and had a desk covered in color-coded folders. I told her I would vacate my bedroom on Friday and wanted a written inspection. Your lease runs through the end of the month, she said. I understand. I'll pay through the end date. I just want to occupy the room and the shared spaces. I want the condition documented when I leave. She studied me over her glasses. Roommate conflict. Property conflict. I said. I am removing everything I've purchased. I don't want anyone later claiming I damaged or shared items. Her expression sharpened with professional interest. Bring your receipts if you have them. I'll attend the walkthrough. We can note what remains. Can I return my key that day? Yes. Your access will be deactivated. Madison's remains active. I asked her to email the details. By lunch, I had a written appointment for Friday at 4. I forwarded the message to Madison with a short note. I will move on Friday. After that date, none of my food, medication, clothing, or emergency equipment will remain in the apartment. Please purchase anything you need before then. She replied 9 minutes later with a laughing emoji. Then she posted a screenshot of my message to her private story with the caption. When your roommate thinks soup is a personality. Naomi sent me the screenshot. Save it, she wrote. I did. For the next 3 days. Madison treated my move like content. She filmed cardboard boxes stacked in my room and narrated them as evidence of my anxiety. She stood in front of the pantry and asked her followers whether food should belong to individuals during a crisis. She called my inventory spreadsheet capitalism with barcodes. At the same time, she kept using my things. On Wednesday morning, I found my last clean travel mug in her backpack. "I need that for class," she said when I removed it. "So do I. You have another one. It's already packed." She reached for the mug. I stepped back. Seriously, you're making coffee into a boundary issue. You put my mug in your bag without asking. It was already a boundary issue. She rolled her eyes and recorded a voice note to someone while I washed it. That evening, she brought home 3 friends and ordered pizza using my emotional credit. They spread across the living room while I labeled boxes. "Taking the entire apocalypse stash," Madison announced. One of the friends, a communications major named Blake, looked at the shelves. "All of it. Apparently none of us are allowed to eat when it's—" I held up a grocery receipt. "You are allowed to buy food." Blake laughed uncertainly. Madison smiled. "See, this is what I mean. Everything is transactional with her." "The pizza was transactional too," I said. "The restaurant wouldn't have delivered it without payment." Her friend Jasmine Lee, a graduate student from the apartment downstairs, glanced at me, then at Madison. "Did you declare everything on those shelves?" Madison answered too quickly. "We both contribute." "Show me one receipt," I said. The room went quiet. Madison's smile tightened. "I'm not doing this in front of people. You started it in front of people." Jasmine looked down at her slice of pizza. I returned to my room. Behind me, Madison raised her voice and began telling her friends about how she had once paid for toilet paper. She spoke as if one package purchased 6 months earlier balanced 2 years of groceries and household supplies. I closed my door and kept packing. The red parka went into the first suitcase. My snow boots went into the second. The emergency radio, medicine, charger, lantern, battery station, and first aid kit went into a locked plastic trunk. Each item had a receipt taped inside the lid. On Thursday, the Weather Service upgraded the advisory. A cold front was expected to cross Lake Erie. Heavy snow could develop rapidly. Travel might become difficult or impossible in narrow bands. Students leaving for winter break were urged not to delay. The university sent a second email recommending that students obtain food, water, essential medication, and charged backup batteries. I printed it at the library. Madison deleted it during a live stream. "Fear is how institutions control your spending," she told her viewers. "Every time there's snow in the forecast, people clear the shelves and create the shortage they're afraid of. I'm going to show you how to survive a Buffalo storm without panic buying." A comment asked what supplies she already had. Madison swung the camera toward my pantry. "Plenty," she said. I was standing just outside the frame. "Those leave tomorrow," I said. Her face froze. The camera turned back toward me. "Claire is still doing her private property performance," she said lightly. "The shelves will be empty tomorrow at 4. The comments exploded. Madison ended the live stream. "Why would you say that while I was filming?" "Because you showed my supplies and called them yours. I said we had plenty. Tomorrow you want." She followed me into the kitchen. "You can't take all of—" I opened the receipt folder. "Which item did you pay for?" She pointed at the first aid kit. "That's a household item." I pulled up the pharmacy order on my phone. "My employee number and debit card are listed on the invoice." She pointed at the rechargeable lantern. "We both use that when the power flickers. You using something doesn't make you its owner. You're being insane. Then it should be easy to replace everything with sane purchases." Her cheeks flushed. "You're doing this to make me look bad. I'm moving before a storm, 10 days after the first advisory and 4 days after I notified you." She folded her arms tightly. "You know I don't have time to shop. You spent 3 hours editing a video today. That's my work. Then use the income from your work to buy groceries." For a moment, I saw something raw in her expression, not fear of hunger. Fear of being expected to pay. Then she recovered. "Fine. Take your bunker. I'll prove I don't need it." "Good." She stared at me as if she had expected resistance. That's all you have to say. Yes. That night I slept with my suitcases against the bedroom door. I woke at 2 in the morning to the sound of the handle moving. Madison tried twice. Softly. Then stopped. I did not confront her. I saved the timestamp on my phone. Friday morning arrived bright and painfully cold. The storm was still several days away. Cars moved normally. Grocery stores were open. Buses ran on schedule. No one was trapped. No one was helpless. Naomi arrived at 9 with her brother's cargo van and a clipboard. You weren't exaggerating, she said when she saw the rows of boxes. About which part? Any of it. We started with my bedroom. Clothes, books, documents, bedding, desk lamp, toiletries. Then the bathroom cabinet. Then the kitchen. Madison emerged wearing an oversized sweatshirt and filming. I want a record, she said. So do we, Naomi replied, holding up her own phone. Madison looked irritated. She had expected to control the angle. We laid each item on the dining table, matched it to the inventory, and checked the receipt. Naomi initialed every line. I packed the food by category, sealed each box, and marked it with a number. Madison hovered. The pasta was in the shared pantry, receipt 17. Naomi said. Claire's debit card. The batteries are for emergencies, receipt 23. Claire's pharmacy account. The thermal blankets should stay with the apartment, online order number 8. Claire's name. Madison picked up a can of tomato soup. Documenting soup like evidence in a murder trial. I was cold in her hand. I remembered trying to crawl through snow. Put it down, I said. Something in my voice made her do it. By noon, the pantry was bare. The refrigerator held 2 bottles of flavored sparkling water, mustard, hot sauce, half a lemon, and 3 individual yogurts kept with Madison's name written across the lids. The freezer contained an ice tray and a bag of decorative frozen berries she used in drink videos. One kitchen cabinet held a half bag of protein powder, a box with 3 cereal flakes at the bottom, a package of expensive handmade pasta that required a deep pot Madison did not own, and several empty food packages arranged for filming. I left every item she had purchased. I also left a roll of paper towels, 2 trash bags, and the basic cleaning products listed on the apartment's move-in sheet because we had split the cost. The amounts were written into the inspection report. At 3:50, Mrs. Alvarez arrived. She checked my bedroom walls, carpet, window, and closet. She photographed the common spaces. She compared the remaining property to Naomi's list. Madison stood beside the empty pantry with her arms folded. This is ridiculous, she said. No one does an official inspection because they move a few boxes. Mrs. Alvarez adjusted her glasses. People do official inspections when they anticipate a dispute. There isn't a dispute. Then the record will be easy to sign. Madison refused to sign. Mrs. Alvarez noted the refusal. At 4:20, I carried the last box down the stairs. Madison leaned against the doorframe, filming. My paranoid roommate took her apocalypse bunker and ran away. She told the camera. For the next week, I'm going to prove that community is more valuable than hoarding. I stopped on the landing. What community? She lowered the phone slightly. The people who actually care about each other. Then they can bring you groceries. Naomi coughed to hide a laugh. Madison's eyes narrowed. You'll come back when you calm down. My key is deactivated. You still pay through the month. I paid for my room, not your life. I handed my key to Mrs. Alvarez. The electronic lock beeped when she removed my access. It was a small sound. It felt like a door closing on an entire life. At the studio, I unpacked only what I needed for the night. My supplies filled one wall of a closet and 2 shelves above the kitchenette. The red parka hung by the door. My medicine went into a locked drawer. I made soup, charged every battery, and slept under a thick blanket while wind tapped lightly against the new windows. For the first time in 2 lives, I woke without wondering what Madison had taken while I slept. On Saturday morning, Madison posted her first response video. She stood in front of the empty pantry wearing a white tank top and loose gray pants, as if the absence of food behind her were a minimalist design choice. My roommate moved out and took every item she considered hers. She said, And honestly, I'm grateful. We confuse safety with excess. We think our anxiety becomes responsible if we organize it in plastic bins. This week I'm starting from zero, no hoarding, no fear, just resourcefulness. She opened the refrigerator and displayed 3 yogurts like a cooking show host. You need less than you think. Naomi sent me the link with one sentence. She knows stores are still open, right? They were. The sky was pale and clear. Traffic moved along Elmwood Avenue. The grocery store 2 blocks from Maple Ridge was open until 11. Madison had no classes that day. She also had a car. I saved the video and returned to unpacking. The studio felt ordinary once my belongings were inside it. A blue blanket covered the bed. My books filled the lower shelf beside the desk. The emergency radio sat near the window. There was no aesthetic arrangement. No carefully curated neutral palette. No empty package pretending to be food. Everything had a purpose. At noon, I received a notification from the University Creator Portal. Madison had tagged me in an application update for the Winter Resilience Challenge, a student media grant that awarded $5,000 to content projects focused on community well-being. She had listed me as a production assistant. In my first life, she had done the same thing without asking. When the grant committee later questioned the source of the supplies shown in her videos, Madison claimed I had purchased them on behalf of the project. My name on the application made the lie plausible. This time I opened the portal and selected Decline Participation. A box appeared asking for a reason. I wrote, I did not consent to participate. The applicant does not control the emergency supplies shown in previous footage. Those supplies were my personal property and have been removed from her residence. I attached the move-out inspection, then saved a copy. Madison called within 6 minutes. What did you send the grant committee? The truth. You could have talked to me first. You could have asked before listing me. It was a formality. Then my refusal should not matter. Her breathing sharpened. You're trying to sabotage my work. I removed my name from it. The entire proposal is about shared student resilience. It looks bad if my roommate refuses to participate. Former roommate, Claire. She used my name the way some people used a warning bell. I waited. Take back the decline. She said. No. At least don't mention the supplies. You used them as evidence in the application. They were in our apartment. They were mine. You're obsessed with ownership. You are too. You just prefer owning other people's things. She hung up. An hour later, the video disappeared from her public page. I knew better than to believe she had changed her mind. Madison rarely abandoned an idea. She changed the audience until she found one that would applaud. That evening, while sorting old email receipts, I discovered the first clue about the brand kits. The message was buried in a promotional folder under the subject line Delivery Confirmation, Northridge Winter Action Packs. It had been forwarded to my email 3 weeks earlier because Madison had used my phone number as the apartment delivery contact. The receipt listed 12 cartons, each containing an emergency blanket, flashlight, batteries, hand warmers, first aid pouch, water purification tablets, and 6 energy bars. The shipment had arrived on November 19th. I remembered the boxes. Madison had stacked them near the living room wall and told me they contained lighting equipment. 2 days later, they were gone. In my first life, I had assumed the company collected them after the campaign changed. During the storm, Madison had said the sponsor failed to send supplies. The email said otherwise. I searched her public posts. On November 20th, she had uploaded a 40-second clip beside one open Northridge carton. 12 winter action packs. She announced. 12 students who will be safer because a brand shows impact over empty advertising. The camera never showed the other 11 boxes. I downloaded the clip. Then I searched local resale sites. Madison used several usernames, but she had once sent me a link to a lamp under the account Maddie Buys list. The profile was still active. Its sole listings included 11 identical emergency kits. The listing photographs had been taken on our living room rug. Each kit sold for between $80 and $110. The descriptions called them unopened promotional samples. The final sale was completed 4 days before my rebirth. The next public post on Madison's account showed her unboxing a new mirrorless camera. I saved everything. I did not contact the brand yet. I had proof of the shipment and listings, but not proof that Northridge had required donation rather than allowing personal use. The truth would matter later. For now, I created a folder labeled Action Packs and moved on. Sunday brought another weather update. The National Weather Service now expected a prolonged event. The forecast map showed a narrow band south of the city, but meteorologists warned it could shift north with little notice. Snowfall rates might exceed 2 inches per hour. Wind gusts could produce near whiteout conditions. The university asked students to refill prescriptions and avoid unnecessary travel once the warning began. I checked my medications, charged the battery station, and bought fresh fruit, milk, and bread. I did not panic. I did not empty shelves. I purchased what I would actually use. At the pharmacy, people arrived in heavier numbers than usual. Some waited until the warning. Others were picking up medication for older relatives. Naomi and I spent most of the shift answering questions about early refills and over-the-counter cold remedies. Madison came in 20 minutes before closing. She wore a crop jacket unsuitable for the temperature and carried her camera bag. "I need to use your employee discount," she said. Naomi looked up from the register. "No," I said. Madison smiled as if she thought I was performing for Naomi. "It's for content. I'll tag the pharmacy. Employee discounts are not transferable. You've used it for household supplies." "My household supplies." She placed a basket on the counter. It contained lip balm, facial masks, imported sparkling water, an aromatherapy candle, and 2 packs of decorative gold emergency blankets designed as party favors. Not thermal gear. No food. No medicine. No batteries. "You're buying the wrong things," I said before I could stop myself. Her smile widened. "I thought you weren't responsible for me anymore." The words were bait. I'm not. I rang up the items at full price. Her card declined. Madison's face did not change, but her fingers tightened around the basket handle. "Try it again," I said. "Declined." She opened her banking app, turned away, and transferred money from another account. The third attempt went through. "Technical issue," she told Naomi. Naomi handed her the receipt. "The grocery stores are open for another hour." Madison tucked the receipt away. "I don't buy into panic," Naomi said. But Madison left without answering. Monday morning, the snow forecast expanded. The university moved Tuesday classes online and announced it would decide on further closures based on road conditions. Campus dining would operate limited hours. The student shuttle would end service at 6 p.m. Tuesday evening. Madison posted a video titled "Why I'm Not Buying Before the Storm." She filmed herself walking through a crowded grocery store and criticizing other shoppers. "Carts. Nobody needs 6 cans of soup," she whispered near an older man who had 6 cans of soup. She placed a bag of chips and a bottle of green juice in her own basket for the camera, then left both on a random shelf before exiting without purchasing anything. Her followers praised her discipline. By then I understood the central trick of Madison's life. She performed refusal because someone else always provided the things she publicly rejected. She did not buy groceries because I bought groceries. She did not carry medicine because I carried medicine. She did not charge her devices because she borrowed my battery. She did not plan transportation because someone gave her a ride. She called dependence minimalism as long as the dependent part remained outside the frame. At 3 that afternoon, she texted me, "Where's the can opener?" I stared at the message. The storm had not begun. Doors were open. She could buy a can opener for less than $10. I replied, "Packed with my cans." 3 dots appeared. "That's petty." I did not answer. At 7, she sent another message. "Did you take the big cooking pot too?" "Yes. We both used that." "I bought it." "You left me pasta." "I can't cook it." "You bought that pasta." 3 dots appeared again. "Can you bring the pot over tomorrow?" "No. You live 10 minutes away. Travel conditions may deteriorate by then." "A pot tonight." She reacted to the message with a thumbs down emoji. Tuesday began with wet snow for several hours. It looked unimpressive. The streets stayed dark and damp. Madison uploaded a smug clip from her balcony. "This is the historic disaster everyone emptied the stores for," she said as 3 flakes passed behind her. At 11, the wind shifted. The sky vanished. Snow came across the city in a white wall. Within 40 minutes, the pavement outside my studio disappeared. Cars slowed to a crawl. The hospital parking lot across the street became a field of moving headlights. The university sent an emergency alert. All campus operations suspended. Shelter in place. Do not travel. At 12:30, the county issued a travel advisory. At 2, it became a travel ban. Buses stopped. Rideshare apps suspended service. Grocery deliveries were cancelled. The airport closed its runways. Mr. Darnell knocked on every studio door and reminded tenants where the emergency outlet was located. The generator should stay on, he said, but if the grid fails, hall lights and one outlet will work. Don't use chemical stoves or grills inside. Call me if a pipe freezes. I thought of Madison at Maple Ridge. Madison began her storm livestream. She wore the decorative gold blanket like a cape. Day 1 of surviving the panic economy. She announced, I have 3 yogurts, protein powder, pasta, and confidence. She held up an empty cereal box and laughed. People think a full pantry makes them safe. Adaptability makes you safe. Comments asked whether she had drinking water. She turned on the faucet. Comments asked about medication. I don't expect to get sick because snow exists. Someone asked about a flashlight. She held up her phone. The battery icon showed 27%. She quickly angled the screen away. I watched only long enough to save the link. The first night passed without a major outage. My radiator remained hot. I ate pasta with vegetables, called my mother, and completed an online assignment. Madison sent no messages. On Wednesday morning, the snow outside my third-floor window reached the bottom of parked car windows. The storm band had stalled over the city. Campus announced closure for the rest of the day. Madison uploaded a breakfast clip. 1 yogurt sat in a glass bowl with 3 decorative berries arranged on top. Scarcity makes you creative, she said. She filmed it from 4 angles. Later that morning, Jasmine messaged me through social media. Did Madison buy the hand warmers from you? No. Why? She's offering them to people in the building for $15 a pair. I set down my coffee. What hand warmers? Jasmine sent a screenshot from the Maple Ridge residence group. Limited winter supplies, cash or electronic payment, delivery to your door. The photograph showed the black and orange packaging from the North Ridge action kits. Madison had kept some items after all. I enlarged the image. The lot number was visible on the corner. I added it to the action pack folder. Do not pay her if you are in immediate danger. I wrote to Jasmine. Contact management or emergency services. The county shelter line is listed here. Jasmine replied. I have supplies. I'm saving the screenshot. At noon, campus closure extended through Thursday. The snow kept falling. Madison texted me at 1:14. Bring back 1 food box. No greeting. No request. An order. I no longer live there. I wrote. You took everything before a disaster. I removed my personal property 4 days before the travel ban. You knew this would happen. The alerts were sent to both of us. Stop using legal language and act like a human being. I sent her 3 links. The Maple Ridge emergency number, the county assistance line, and the university student emergency portal. She called immediately. I let it ring twice, then answered and recorded the time. You need to bring food, she said. There is a travel ban. You're closer than the grocery store. That doesn't make travel legal or safe. You have 10 days of supplies. For me, I bought enough to have a buffer. That's selfish. You spent the weekend telling people they needed less than they thought. She lowered her voice. This isn't content. I know. Then stop trying to win. I looked at my shelves. Every can represented money I had earned. Every medical item existed because I had remembered to buy it. She was not asking me to split food while standing beside me. She was demanding that I violate a travel ban because she had refused to walk into an open store for 4 days. Call the assistance line, I said. If you are in medical danger, call 911. I am not calling the government because my roommate is vindictive. Former roommate. You are unbelievable. She hung up. 2 minutes later, She posted a black screen with white text. Some people prepare for disaster because they enjoy watching others need them. I saved it. By Wednesday evening, she had finished the yogurts and most of the protein powder. She attempted to cook the handmade pasta in a shallow frying pan, burned half of it, and filled the apartment with smoke. She edited the failure into a funny video about storm improvisation. What she did not show was the message she sent me afterward. At least send a medicine and the power bank. Those should have stayed with the apartment. I attached the inventory pages showing both purchases. She replied, "You knew I used them. Using them did not make them yours. I have a headache and my phone is dying. Drink water. Contact a medical professional if symptoms become serious. Charge your phone while power is available. Do you hear yourself? You sound like a liability waiver." I did hear myself. I sounded like someone who understood that Madison turned every kindness into an obligation and every obligation into evidence against the person who performed it. At 10 that night, Maple Ridge lost power for 43 minutes. The emergency lights in the corridors activated, but outlets inside the apartments did not work. Madison's phone fell to 6%. She posted an audio-only live stream to save battery. My former roommate cleared out every emergency item before leaving. She said in a trembling voice. She knew the storm was coming. She took food, medicine, flashlights, batteries, and blankets. Then she blocked me from accessing them. I had not blocked her. I was listening from my account. Her audience did not know that. Comments filled the screen. "That's abuse. Call the police. She planned this. Name her." Madison hesitated for exactly the amount of time required to appear reluctant. Then she said my full name. My university email began receiving messages before her live stream ended. "You should be ashamed. Hope you feel good when she dies. Psychopath." I took screenshots, exported headers, and placed the emails in a harassment folder. Then I sent one message to the University Creator Office, the Student Conduct Office, Northridge Outdoor Company, and the donation platform linked on Madison's page. Please preserve all original posts, live stream files, transaction records, and uploaded documents connected to Madison Cole's winter relief content. I dispute her claims regarding ownership of the supplies shown. Relevant purchase and move-out records are available upon request. I did not write a public defense. I did not beg strangers to believe me. I asked the institutions holding the original records not to let them disappear. At 11:14, the power returned. Madison deleted the live stream. At 11:22, Northridge's Community Partnerships Manager replied, "Thank you. We are preserving all materials associated with Ms. Cole's campaign and will contact you for documentation." The donation platform acknowledged my report 15 minutes later. At midnight, the university placed Madison's Winter Resilience Challenge application under administrative review. She called me 18 times. I did not answer. At 12:37, she sent a voice message. "You contacted my sponsor. Are you out of your mind? I am in an emergency and you're trying to destroy my income. Call them back and say you misunderstood. Those kits were compensation. I could do whatever I wanted with them. Claire, answer me." I saved the audio. Then I slept. Thursday morning arrived without a horizon. The window was white from edge to edge. Snow struck the glass in dry bursts, then swirled upward as the wind changed direction. The university canceled Friday operations and warned that the closure could extend into the following week. County officials repeated the travel ban and asked residents not to call emergency services for food delivery unless they had exhausted all other options. I had oatmeal, coffee, heat, and a fully charged phone. At Maple Ridge, Madison had 2 servings of protein powder left. She did not post breakfast. At 8:17, she sent me a photograph of the empty refrigerator. The picture showed exactly what had remained during the official move-out inspection. I forwarded her the signed report and the time-stamped photographs. "You had 4 days after my notice to shop." I wrote, "You had 3 days after I moved out before the travel ban." She responded with paragraphs accusing me of emotional abuse, class cruelty, and using my privilege to control access to medicine. The phrase pharmacy privilege was almost impressive. I worked 14 hours a week between classes for $13.75 an hour. My employee discount did not create medicine for the masses. It reduced the cost of certain store-brand products by 10%. Madison had transformed a modest benefit from my job into another moral debt I owed her. I did not reply. At 10. Jasmine sent a new screenshot from the residence group. Madison had reduced the price of hand warmers to $10 a pair. But she now required buyers to follow her account and tag her in their stories. She also offered 2 energy bars for $12. A first-year student named Owen wrote that he had asthma and needed batteries for a nebulizer backup unit. Madison replied that she had none. 20 minutes later, she posted a photograph of 4 unopened battery packs beside her decorative candle. I sent the screenshots to Mrs. Alvarez. She responded that building management was coordinating with county services and would distribute emergency items at no charge when supplies arrived. She asked residents not to conduct private sales in common areas. Madison accused management of interfering with mutual aid. By noon, the storm became a story on national news. Drone footage showed highways buried beneath abandoned vehicles. Snow bands shifted over the city faster than plows could clear them. The university announced that all classes would remain remote through the following Tuesday, making a full week of campus closure. The message reached Madison at the same time it reached me. She called. This time her voice was different. They're closing for a week. I saw the dining hall too. Limited emergency service is operating at the main shelter. I can't get there. The county is organizing transportation for vulnerable residents when conditions allow. Submit the form I sent you. I am not vulnerable. Then you can wait until travel resumes. With what food? I said nothing. Her breath caught. Claire. I haven't eaten since yesterday afternoon. The first time I died. She had eaten my last protein bar on the shuttle. I remembered the wrapper in her hand. I remembered tapping the glass door as the bus moved away. My fingers tightened around the phone. You have emergency kits. I said. Silence. What? Northridge shipped 12. You sold 11. The residence group shows you're selling parts from the remaining kit. You are stalking my resale account. You used my phone number for the delivery notice. Those were mine. Then use them. Energy bars aren't meals. We're enough to sell to other students. This is not the time to punish me. I am not punishing you. I am refusing to cross a closed city because you sold your emergency food and chose not to buy groceries. Her voice rose. You bought enough for both of us. You told 400,000 followers I bought too much. That was content. The words came out before she could stop them. I let the silence hold them between us. She said more carefully. I was making a point. So am I. I ended the call. At 1:30, a representative from Student Affairs contacted me. Madison had submitted an emergency complaint alleging that I had removed shared food and medical supplies with the intent to strand her during a disaster. The administrator, Ms. Dana Pike, sounded tired but neutral. We are not making a determination during the storm. Our primary concern is safety. Do you have any reason to believe Ms. Cole requires urgent medical assistance? She told me she has not eaten since yesterday afternoon. She has access to running water and heat. As far as I know, she has some energy bars and emergency supplies from a brand shipment. I have repeatedly sent her the county assistance form, the property emergency number, and instructions to call 911 if she is medically unsafe. Would you be willing to deliver food? There is a county travel ban. Of course. I am not asking you to violate it. I needed to record your response. I moved out 4 days before the ban. All supplies removed were individually purchased by me and documented during a property inspection. Please send those records. I emailed the move-out report, receipts, notification to Madison, and her laughing response. Ms. Pike called back 20 minutes later. Thank you. Do not travel. We have passed Ms. Cole's address to the County Coordination Center. She will be contacted about available assistance. Will she know I provided information? She already listed you as her emergency contact. I closed my eyes. Of course she had. In my first life, Madison had made me her emergency contact, grant assistant, and secondary billing person whenever a form demanded responsibility. She preferred my name wherever consequences might arrive. Please remove me from any university emergency contact field she controls. I said. I do not consent. I can note the request and send you the privacy form. I completed it immediately. At 3, Madison began another live stream. This one was professionally framed. She sat on the kitchen floor beneath a blanket, face pale and eyes wet. The empty shelf stood behind her. I didn't want to talk about this. She began, which was how she began every subject she most wanted to talk about, but silence protects people who use resources as weapons. She displayed a cropped screenshot of my message saying I no longer lived there. She did not show the line beneath it with emergency contacts. My roommate knew a historic storm was coming, she said. She removed food that we had collected for our household and left me with nothing. She also contacted organizations I work with and tried to damage my reputation while I was isolated. She opened a donation link labeled emergency food and legal support. The first donations appeared within seconds. $10, $25, $100. Comments demanded my expulsion. Someone posted the name of the pharmacy where I worked. Someone else found my mother's public profile. I watched from a recorded browser window and said nothing. Madison cried at the correct moments. She showed her empty refrigerator. She held up the decorative gold blanket. She said she had grown up without financial security and had spent her college years learning how to survive with dignity. Her parents owned 2 orthodontic practices outside Syracuse. Every month, they transferred $1,200 into an account she called her Independence Fund. I knew because she had once left the banking screen open while asking me to pay the internet bill until Friday. At the end of the live stream, she promised that any donation above her immediate needs would support winter relief for other students. Within an hour, the total passed $8,000. Northridge's community partnerships manager emailed me again. We would like to confirm whether Ms. Cole represented the action packs as unavailable during the storm. Please provide any relevant public content. I sent the live stream clip where Madison said her sponsor had failed to send supplies, the delivery confirmation, the resale listings, and the hand warmer sales screenshots. The manager replied that the campaign agreement required all 12 kits to be distributed free of charge to named student recipients by December 1st. The company had received photographs but no recipient confirmations. She asked whether I could identify the location in the listing photos. I attached the move-in photographs of the Maple Ridge living room rug. At 5:15, the donation platform froze Madison's withdrawal function pending review. At 5:21, Northridge suspended her partnership. At 5:28, she tried to end the live stream and call her manager. She tapped the wrong icon. The public video remained active. The main image switched from her face to the ceiling because she could no longer see herself on screen. She assumed the broadcast had ended. Her voice changed instantly. I need you to fix this. A man's voice came through the speaker, her manager. Devin. Northridge sent a breach notice. They say the distribution records are fake. They're not fake. Then send me the names of the 12 recipients. I can't get that right now. Why? Because Claire reported me. She was supposed to leave the supplies. She always bought enough for both of us. The comment feed slowed as if thousands of people had leaned closer. One typed, "What does Claire's food have to do with Northridge's kits?" I sold the kits because I thought I could use hers if anything happened. Someone in the comments typed, "She sold them." Then hundreds of people repeated it. Devin went silent. Madison continued, unaware. It wasn't a big deal. Nobody was going to need them. Buffalo gets warnings all the time. I used the money for the camera, which I needed for the campaign. Madison, are you recording this? No. The live stream is off. The ceiling remained on screen. People are saying you charged residents for hand warmers. Only the ones who could afford it. That isn't the problem. The problem is Claire took everything before the storm. Just tell people she stole the communal supplies. Did she? They were in the common area. Did she pay for them? That's not how roommates work. Devin. Devin exhaled slowly. Your live stream is still on. The phone moved for 1 second. Madison's face filled the screen. Her eyes were wide. Her mouth opened. The broadcast ended. The recording had been live for 46 seconds after she thought it was off. 46 seconds was enough. Green recordings appeared before she could delete the original. Student accounts reposted them. Former supporters demanded refunds. The phrase "I sold the kits because I thought I could use hers" spread across every platform. Madison called me. I declined. She called again. I declined. The third time, she left a voice message. "You planned this. You knew the live stream was still running and you didn't warn me. You're sick. You wanted me humiliated." I had not been in the room. I had not touched her phone. I had not called her manager. But in Madison's world, any consequence I did not prevent was something I had done to her. I saved the message. At 6, Jasmine sent me a text. "The building group is turning on her. She sold Owen batteries yesterday, but she told the live stream she had none. He paid $40. I asked whether Owen was safe. Jasmine said management had located a generator-supported common room for his equipment, and county staff were checking on him. She sent a photograph of a small cardboard box outside Madison's door. Someone had returned 2 empty hand warmer wrappers with a note. Community is not a cash register. I did not know who left it. I did not ask. That night, Madison stopped posting. The storm did not stop. On Friday, the university confirmed closure through Tuesday. Snow emergency crews began clearing priority routes, but residential streets remained blocked. Food distribution points opened in several heated buildings when safe transport became available. Madison received a call from county coordination offering a seat on a supervised transport to the nearest shelter. She refused. I learned that later from the complaint record. At the time, all I knew was the message she sent me. "They want to put me in a public shelter with no privacy. Tell them I need a hotel." I replied, "I do not control county emergency placements. You could pay for one now. I will pay you back when the donations clear. The donations are under review. You caused that. Your statements caused that." She responded with a photograph of her hand. The fingers looked pale, but not injured. "I'm getting sick. If you have numbness, chest pain, confusion, difficulty breathing, severe weakness, or another urgent symptom, call 911. The building still has heat. Accept the shelter transport when offered." She sent a single sentence. "You really want to see how far this goes?" I set the phone down. "No. I already know how far it went. It went to a snowbank, 2 blocks from Maple Ridge." That afternoon, Mrs. Alvarez called me. "I need to ask about a portable device." She said. "What portable device?" "Madison claims it was yours." "I did not own one at Maple Ridge. I have no gas cooking equipment. Can you put that in writing?" I did. 20 minutes later, the Maple Ridge fire alarm appeared in the local emergency scanner feed. I stood so quickly my chair struck the wall. Cold hallways, dead phone, locked doors, the first life flooded back into my body. I called Mrs. Alvarez, but she did not answer. Then Jasmine messaged the residence group. "Everyone is out. Fire department here. CO alarm. Do not go back inside. Carbon monoxide." Madison had found a small butane camping stove in the remaining Northridge kit. The device had been supplied for an outdoor safety video, not for student distribution. A bright warning label on its case said outdoor use only. She used it in the closed kitchen because she wanted hot pasta. When the carbon monoxide alarm sounded, she removed its battery. The alarm in the neighboring unit activated next. Firefighters entered the building, shut off the stove, ventilated the second floor, and evacuated residents to a heated bus. Madison and 2 neighbors were evaluated for exposure. No one suffered lasting injury. The story might have ended as a foolish mistake if Madison had not been live streaming again. She had set her phone beside the sink to film what she called a resourceful indoor cooking method. The video showed her reading the warning label aloud. "Outdoor use only," she said, smiling at the camera. "That's mostly legal protection. Open a window and use common sense." She opened the window 2 inches despite the wind, lit the stove, and placed a shallow pan above the flame. When the first alarm sounded, she complained it was ruining the audio. Then she took out the battery. The recording continued until firefighters entered. "Who else is in the unit?" one of them demanded. "No one. My roommate abandoned me." "When did she leave?" "Right before the storm. She took all the safe equipment." The firefighter looked at the camera, the burner, the stove, and the open emergency kit box. This equipment says outdoor use only. I didn't have another option. You were offered shelter transport this morning. Madison said nothing. That part of the video spread faster than her accidental confession. By Friday evening, the narrative had fully reversed. People no longer asked why I had taken my supplies. They asked why Madison had sold 12 emergency kits, refused food shopping, rejected shelter transport, removed an alarm battery, and still blamed a former roommate. Northridge terminated her partnership. The university suspended her creator grant application. The donation platform began refunding contributions. Madison was transported to the public shelter she had refused earlier. She arrived wearing a decorative gold party blanket over a thin jacket. My red parka was hanging safely in my studio closet. I slept well that night, not because she had suffered, but because everyone in Maple Ridge had survived her need to turn danger into content. The storm finally loosened its grip on Sunday. Snow still fell, but the band shifted south, and the sky over the hospital lightened from white to gray. Crews reached the main road outside my building. Emergency vehicles moved in slow lines, red lights reflecting from walls of snow taller than their hoods. The travel ban remained in effect. Campus remained closed. Madison spent Sunday at the municipal shelter, where meals, bottled water, charging stations, and medical screening were available without cost. She posted nothing publicly, but she sent me 23 messages. The first blamed me for the sponsor cancellation. The next blamed me for the donation freeze. Then she blamed me for the fire department video, the shelter photographs, the comments under her account, and the fact that her father had called after seeing a national repost of her accidental live stream. By evening, the messages changed. Please tell Northridge the kits were stolen. Say you took some before moving. They will believe you because you worked at the pharmacy. I can give you half of whatever they don't make me repay. I did not respond. At 9, she sent an apology. It was 4 sentences long and contained the word sorry once. I'm sorry things got out of control. We both made choices because we were stressed. I shouldn't have named you online. But you shouldn't have contacted my sponsor during an emergency. We need to present a united version before the school starts asking questions. I saved it in a folder labeled Attempted Coordination. Monday morning, the university notified both of us that a preliminary review would begin when campus reopened. The review would cover Madison's emergency complaint against me, my report regarding false ownership claims, the creator grant application, and the distribution of sponsored goods. Madison immediately requested an emergency order preventing me from discussing her online. I had not discussed her online. She also asked the university to prohibit me from deleting any records. I had already preserved them. Ms. Pike called again. I want to be clear, a complaint is not a finding. Both of you will have the opportunity to submit evidence. Will the hearing be public? Student conduct proceedings are usually private. However, the creator grant review may include the sponsoring offices, and Ms. Cole has requested that her content rights representatives attend. She wants an audience. She stated that reputational harm has made transparency necessary. Of course she had. Madison believed an audience was a weapon because it had always been hers. I consent to the relevant representatives attending. I said. I also want the property manager and Northridge representative invited. If the committee accepts outside witnesses, submit their names with your evidence packet. I spent the rest of Monday building a timeline. December 7th, initial inventory photographs. December 8th, studio application and lease. December 9th, Maple Ridge inspection scheduled. December 10th, written move-out notice to Madison. December 11th, university weather advisory. December 12th, supply ownership dispute on live stream. December 13th, move-out inspection. Key deactivation. Property removed. December 14th to 16th, stores open. Weather warnings escalated. December 17th, storm arrival and travel ban. December 18th, campus closure extended. Madison demanded supplies. December 19th, public accusation. Donation campaign. Accidental live stream confession. December 20th, indoor stove use. Carbon monoxide response. Shelter transport. Every entry linked to original records. I included files that made me uncomfortable. The video of Madison mocking my inventory. The moment I told her the shelves would be empty Friday. The screenshot of her laughing response to my written notice. My own text advising her to shop before travel deteriorated. I did not crop out anything that could make me look cold. Context was stronger than performance. Naomi reviewed the packet on her shared screen. "You're using too many words in the summary," she said. "I need to explain the pattern." The pattern explains itself. Start with ownership, notice, opportunity, choice, consequence. I wrote the words down. Ownership, notice, opportunity, choice, consequence. That became the structure of my case. On Tuesday, limited campus operations resumed. The roads near my studio reopened to essential traffic, but Lake Erie State kept buildings closed. My pharmacy remained shut because staff could not safely travel. Madison returned to Maple Ridge on a county shuttle. The apartment had heat again after ventilation, but the kitchen window had been damaged by wind while she left it open. The fire department had discarded the stove's fuel canister. Management had documented the removed alarm battery and charged her account for emergency repairs. She filmed the notice and said the property company was exploiting disaster survivors. Mrs. Alvarez sent a building-wide email reminding tenants that indoor use of fuel-burning cooking equipment violated the lease and endangered neighboring units. Madison replied to all residents. "This is selective enforcement caused by false reports from a former tenant." Jasmine replied. "The carbon monoxide alarm was not a false report." Owen added. "Neither was the $40 you charged me for batteries." Someone else attached Madison's accidental live stream transcript. Mrs. Alvarez locked the email thread. By Wednesday, the university reopened administrative offices. Classes remained remote while crews cleared pedestrian paths and inspected roofs. The hearing was scheduled for Friday at 10 in the Student Governance Center, with a video option for external representatives. Madison had requested permission to stream her own statement. The committee denied the request but agreed to record the proceeding for the official record. She complained publicly that the university was silencing her. She also retained an attorney. His name was Martin Heller, and his letter accused me of intentional infliction of emotional distress, conversion of communal property, interference with contractual relations, and defamatory reporting. The letter demanded that I return half the value of the supplies, pay Madison's emergency hotel and medical costs, withdraw all complaints, issue a public statement admitting that we jointly purchased the food, and compensate her for lost sponsorship income. The deadline was Thursday at noon. Naomi read the letter and said, "He used 5 pages to ask you to lie." I took it to the university student legal clinic. The clinic attorney, Rachel Ford, was a compact woman with short gray hair and no patience for dramatic adjectives. She read the demand twice. "Do not respond directly. They have not filed a lawsuit. The property claim is weak if your records are accurate. The interference allegation depends on whether you knowingly made false statements to the sponsor. You sent documents, not accusations. Could I be liable because I knew a storm was coming when I moved the supplies? Were you under a contract to feed Madison coal? No. Did you conceal the weather alert from her? No. Did you prevent her from shopping while stores were open? No. Did you take property she purchased? No. Did you lock her in the apartment?" My stomach turned. "No. Then the weather does not transfer ownership of your property to her. A disaster can create moral questions. It does not retroactively make one adult another adult's legal provider." The sentence loosened something in my chest. In my first life, Madison had used morality as fog. She made every boundary look cruel until I could no longer see what was mine. Rachel tapped the letter. "This is pressure before the hearing. Preserve it. We will send a short acknowledgement stating that you dispute the claims and will not make false statements. Can you attend Friday? The clinic can advise you, but student conduct hearings do not always allow attorneys to speak. I can sit as an advisor if the rules permit." I added her name to my request. Thursday afternoon, Northridge sent its internal campaign file. The document destroyed the last ambiguity Madison might have used. The 12 kits were not personal compensation. They were restricted promotional goods for free distribution. Madison had signed an agreement requiring her to select 12 students, obtain consent, and submit a delivery confirmation for each recipient. She had submitted 12 names. 3 belonged to people who did not attend Lake Erie State. 2 were duplicated. 1 was a fictional name from a television series. 4 were minor variations of Madison's own name. The remaining 2 were Claire Morgan and Naomi Brooks. Neither of us had received a kit. Naomi stared at the screen. She used my name. She needed 12. I have never spoken to Northridge. Neither have I. The delivery confirmations included digital signatures. Mine was a crude imitation of the signature on our old apartment chore chart. Naomi's was copied from a pharmacy training sheet Madison had once photographed for a behind-the-scenes post. Northridge's representative, Leah Benton, wrote that the company would provide platform logs linking the submissions to Madison's account and device. The issue was no longer only misuse of supplies. It was falsification. At 6 that evening, Madison knocked on my studio door. I knew it was her because she called my name before touching the buzzer. Claire, open the door. My body reacted before my mind did. I saw locked bedroom doors. A red parka. A shuttle moving away. I did not approach the door. I called Mr. Darnell. A former roommate is outside my unit and will not leave. He arrived from downstairs within 2 minutes. Through the peephole, I saw Madison in a black designer coat, her hair pulled into a perfect low ponytail. She held a paper bag. Tenant asked you to leave, Mr. Darnell said. I just need 5 minutes. You can call her. She won't answer. That sounds like an answer. Madison looked directly at the peephole. I know you're there. I brought your favorite tea. She did not know my favorite tea. The bag came from a place that sold expensive cookies she liked. We need to fix this before tomorrow, she said. Northridge is threatening legal action. My attorney says this will hurt both of us if it becomes public. Mr. Darnell repeated. You need to leave. Madison's voice softened. Claire. I was scared. I said things I didn't mean. We lived together for 2 years. You know I'm not a bad person. I remembered her refusing to open the bedroom door while I begged for fever medicine. People did not become harmless because they described themselves gently. I opened my phone and sent her a message. Do not come to my residence again. Communicate through the university process or your attorney. Her phone chimed in her hand. She read it. Her face hardened. You're enjoying this. That's what no one understands. You planned to move because you wanted me trapped. Mr. Darnell stepped between her and the door. Time to go. As she walked toward the elevator, the paper bag swung against her leg. She left it in the lobby trash. Can I ask Mr. Darnell to preserve the hallway camera footage? I asked him. He nodded. Friday morning was clear and brutally bright. Snowbanks towered along the cleared sidewalks. The university shuttle passed walls of compacted ice. Students moved carefully over salted paths, many carrying boots and plastic bags because indoor floors were wet. The Student Governance Center had reopened only for essential appointments. The hearing took place in a conference room on the 2nd floor. I arrived 40 minutes early with Rachel Ford and 3 identical evidence binders. Naomi joined us 10 minutes later. Mrs. Alvarez sat near the witness chairs with a folder on her lap. Leah Benton appeared on a large screen from Northridge's headquarters. 2 representatives from the Creator Grant Office occupied the far side of the table. Dean Patricia Wells chaired the panel with Ms. Pike and Professor Hannah Reed. Madison entered at 9:58. Martin Heller walked beside her, carrying a leather briefcase. Devin, her manager, followed several steps behind. Madison wore a navy blazer and no visible makeup except the exact amount required to look exhausted but composed. She paused when she saw the room. Her gaze moved from Mrs. Alvarez to Naomi to Leah Benton on the screen. She had wanted an audience. She had not expected witnesses. Dean Wells opened the proceeding at 10. This review concerns multiple overlapping matters. First, Ms. Cole's allegation that Ms. Morgan intentionally removed communal emergency supplies and endangered her during the storm. Second, Ms. Morgan's allegation that Ms. Cole falsely represented ownership of those supplies and used her identity without permission. Third, questions regarding the Winter Resilience Challenge application and sponsored Northridge action packs. Fourth, conduct occurring during the emergency that may implicate student safety and university policies. Martin raised a hand. We object to combining these matters. The emergency abandonment complaint should be considered separately from unrelated commercial disputes. Dean Wells looked at him. The same supplies, representations, and timeline appear in each matter. The committee will consider them together. You may note your objection for the record. Madison's shoulders tightened. Dean Wells asked whether either student wished to make an opening statement. Madison went first. She spoke for 11 minutes. She described our apartment as a cooperative household. She said we had shared food, medicine, and emergency resources for 2 years. She admitted I often paid initially, but claimed she contributed through cleaning, content income, and emotional labor. She said my sudden move was designed to punish her for creative disagreements. Claire knew the storm was likely to close the university. She said. She removed not only personal clothing but every edible item and every emergency tool. She left an empty apartment. Then she monitored my suffering online when I asked for help. She contacted my sponsors instead. She paused and looked toward the committee. I made mistakes under extreme stress. I should not have used the camping stove. I should not have named Claire publicly. But none of those mistakes erase the deliberate cruelty that created the emergency. It was a strong performance. Professor Reed looked troubled. One grant representative tapped notes. Madison's voice broke at exactly the right place. Then Dean Wells asked me to speak. I opened the first binder. This case can be understood through 5 questions. Who owned the supplies? What notice did Madison receive? What opportunity did she have to prepare? What choices did she make? And what consequences followed from those choices? Madison's eyes flicked toward Martin. I began with ownership. On the screen, I displayed the inventory spreadsheet. Each item linked to a receipt and purchase record. Food, medicine, clothing, batteries, lanterns, power banks, radio, emergency blankets, cooking equipment. These purchases total $943. 18 over 14 months. I said. Every payment came from my bank account, pharmacy employee account, or personal card. Martin leaned forward. Shared use can establish communal ownership despite initial payment. Rachel whispered that I should let the chair handle it. Dean Wells said. Mr. Heller, you may question after the presentation. I displayed photographs from before the move. Then the signed inspection report. Mrs. Alvarez confirmed the process. Ms. Morgan asked me to document the unit because she anticipated a property dispute. I observed the removal. She did not take any item Ms. Cole identified with proof of purchase. Professor Reed asked. Did Ms. Cole object at the time? She objected verbally to Claire removing food and emergency items. When asked to identify items she purchased, she did not provide receipts or payment records. She declined to sign the inspection report. I moved to notice. The screen showed my email. I will move on Friday. After that date, none of my food, medication, clothing, electronics, or emergency equipment will remain in the apartment. Please purchase anything you need before then. Below it was Madison's laughing emoji. Then her private story caption. When your roommate thinks soup is a personality. A few people in the room looked down to hide reactions. Madison shifted in her chair. I showed the university weather warnings and her live stream deleting one of them. The first warning came 6 days before the travel ban. I said. The strongest warnings came when all stores, pharmacies, roads, and buses remained open. Professor Reed asked. Did you ever tell Madison not to shop? No. I advised her to buy a pot and supplies before conditions deteriorated. The message appeared on screen. Travel conditions may deteriorate by tonight. I moved to opportunity. I displayed store hours, bus schedules, Madison's own grocery store video from Monday, and the pharmacy receipt from Sunday. Madison physically entered both a pharmacy and a grocery store after I notified her that the supplies would leave. At the pharmacy, she purchased cosmetics, sparkling water, a candle, and decorative blankets. At the grocery store, she filmed other shoppers but bought no food. Martin objected that purchasing decisions were personal and not evidence of intent. They are evidence of opportunity. I said. Dean Wells nodded. Continue. I moved to choice. The screen showed Madison's messages. You bought enough for both of us. Those things were supposed to stay here. I knew you would come back once I got scared. Then the accidental live stream played. I sold the kits because I thought I could use hers if anything happened. Madison looked at the table throughout the clip. Devin closed his eyes. When the recording ended, the room was quiet. I did not fill the silence. Dean Wells asked Leah Benton to explain the action packs. Leah's voice came clearly through the speakers. Northridge provided 12 restricted distribution kits to Ms. Cole. They were not personal compensation. Our agreement required free delivery to 12 students by December 1st. Ms. Cole submitted 12 recipient confirmations. We later learned that 11 kits were sold through a resale account associated with her. Parts of the remaining kit were sold to residents during the storm. Martin said. Ms. Cole disputes that the contract prohibited resale. Leah shared the agreement on screen. The prohibition was highlighted in bold. Not for resale. Distribution to approved student recipients required. Then she showed the recipient list. My name appeared on line 4. Naomi's appeared on line 9. Did either of you receive a kit? Dean Wells asked. No. I said. No. Naomi said. Leah displayed the digital confirmations. My forged signature sat beneath a photograph of an unopened box. Naomi's forged signature sat beneath the same photograph. Cropped differently. Professor Reed's face changed. Until that moment, she had looked concerned about a roommate conflict. Now she looked angry. Mess. Cole, she said. Your grant application described these 12 distributions as the completed pilot stage of the Winter Resilience Project. Did you know the confirmations were false when you submitted them? Madison looked at Martin. He said, my client will not answer a question that may implicate her in a separate legal matter. Dean Wells wrote something down. I moved to consequence. The public donation campaign appeared on screen. Madison's statements claimed she had no supplies because I removed communal property. The platform record showed more than $8,000 raised before withdrawals were frozen. Then came the residents group screenshots. $15 for hand warmers. $12 for 2 energy bars. $40 for batteries. Jasmine testified that she watched Madison deliver the items. Owen joined remotely and confirmed he paid $40 for battery packs marked with the Northridge logo. I needed them for backup power for a nebulizer. He said. She told me there were no free supplies and the building had nothing. Later, management found a supported room for me. Madison interrupted. I gave him a discount. Every head turned toward her. Martin put a hand over his microphone and whispered sharply. Owen stared from the screen. They were free kits. Madison's face reddened. Dean Wells asked the fire department liaison to summarize the safety incident. The liaison did not attend live. But his written report was read into the record. Madison had used a fuel-burning stove indoors. She had read the outdoor use warning aloud. She had removed the first alarm's battery. She had previously declined shelter transport. The building evacuation involved 28 residents. 2 neighbors reported headaches and nausea but recovered after fresh air and evaluation. Martin argued that these events resulted from desperation caused by my removal of cooking equipment. Mrs. Alvarez answered before I could. Every Maple Ridge unit has an electric stove. Ms. Cole's unit had working electricity when she lit the camping stove. The room shifted again. Madison lifted her chin. The burner was slow. Mrs. Alvarez's expression did not change. Firefighters tested it. Naomi's hand closed over her pen. Even Rachel looked briefly surprised. Madison had not used the camping stove because she lacked a cooking option. She had used it because the dramatic flame looked better on camera. The fire department's still image showed her electric burner visible in the background, its indicator light glowing. Professor Reed asked for a recess. We stepped into the hallway. Madison and Martin moved to the opposite end. Devin stayed near the conference room door, looking at his phone. After several minutes, he walked toward me. Rachel stood. I am not here to pressure her, Devin said. I need to clarify something for the committee. Submitted through the chair. Rachel replied. I will. He nodded. Madison saw Devin speaking. She called his name. He did not turn around. When the hearing resumed, he asked to make a statement. I managed Ms. Cole's brand communications, he said. During the storm, She instructed me to tell sponsors that Claire Morgan had stolen communal supplies and that the North Ridge delivery failed. I asked whether those claims were true. Ms. Cole said the distinction did not matter because Claire had embarrassed her publicly by moving. Madison stood. That's confidential. Dean Wells instructed her to sit. Devon continued. I terminated our management agreement this morning. I am providing the relevant messages voluntarily. He submitted screenshots. One message from Madison read, "Make Claire the story. If people focus on the kits, I'm finished." Another read, "She won't fight in public. She hates conflict. Once everyone attacks her, she'll give me the receipts and say we bought things together." My vision narrowed. There it was, not an impulsive mistake during a storm, but a plan based on the person I used to be. Madison had counted on my silence because I had trained her to expect it. Dean Wells read the messages twice. Then she looked at me. "Ms. Morgan, do you have anything further?" I did. I displayed the final voice message from the shelter. "Please tell North Ridge the kits were stolen. Say you took some before moving. They will believe you because you worked at the pharmacy. I can give you half of whatever they don't make me repay." The audio ended. Madison's attorney did not object. There was nothing left to reinterpret. The committee asked us to leave while it deliberated on interim measures. A final disciplinary outcome would require additional review, but grant and safety decisions could be made immediately. In the hallway, Madison came toward me before Martin could stop her. "You knew they would close for a week," she said, her voice shaking with rage. Not grief. "So did you. You could have left one box. You had 12. The words landed harder in the hallway than they had in my head. Madison's mouth opened. No answer came. She recovered quickly. "You wanted me to suffer." "No. I stopped paying to prevent it. I could have died. You had heat, water, an electric stove, emergency contacts, shelter transport, a free brand kit, open stores before the storm, and 6 days of warnings. You sold the supplies, refused the transport, and disabled an alarm for a video. You always helped before." That was the first honest thing she had said all day. "I did," I said. "That's why you never learned how to help yourself." Martin touched her arm. She pulled away. "We were roommates," she said. "We were like family." I remembered the empty medicine cabinet and the shuttle leaving. Family doesn't turn your suffering into content. I walked back to Rachel and Naomi. Madison did not follow. The committee called us back after 40 minutes. Dean Wells read the interim findings in a voice stripped of drama. Madison's Winter Resilience Challenge application was denied immediately for material misrepresentation. Her access to university creator funds was suspended pending a broader review of prior submissions. She was prohibited from representing herself as an agent of Lake Erie State University in fundraising or brand campaigns. She was directed to remove my name, photograph, employment information, and personal history from all public content within 48 hours. She was placed on interim conduct probation for harassment, misuse of another student's identity, and unsafe behavior affecting other residents. The falsified North Ridge confirmations would be referred to the university's Office of General Counsel and, if the company requested it, appropriate outside authorities. The allegation that I had stolen communal supplies was dismissed. The allegation that I had intentionally endangered Madison was dismissed. The committee found that I had provided advance written notice, removed documented personal property while travel remained unrestricted, and repeatedly directed Madison towards emergency resources. The final sentence was the one I needed most. The university finds no evidence that Ms. Morgan had a duty to maintain Ms. Cole's food, medicine, clothing, or emergency equipment after ending their shared residence. No duty, 2 small words. They did not erase the first life. They did not warm the body I had left under snow. But they named the truth Madison had spent 2 years burying beneath accusations of selfishness. I had never been responsible for keeping her alive. Organized, funded, fed, charged, filmed, excused, or admired. Madison sat rigidly beside Martin. "This is not final," he said. Dean Wells nodded. "The conduct process will continue. These interim findings address immediate safety and program eligibility." Professor Reed spoke next. The creator office will also audit previous grant reports. Until that review concludes, all pending payments are frozen. Madison finally looked afraid, not hungry, not cold, afraid. She had built her life on one assumption. Records belong to the person with the largest audience. Now every record she had created was being read by people who did not care how well she cried on camera. Outside the building, reporters from the student newspaper waited near the steps. Madison had told them the hearing concerned disaster abandonment. She had expected to walk out as the victim of an institutional failure. When the doors opened, microphones lifted. Madison, did you sell donated emergency kits? Did you forge recipient signatures? Why did you disable a carbon monoxide alarm? Are you refunding residents who paid for supplies? She stopped so abruptly that Martin nearly walked into her. I have been advised not to comment, she said. A week earlier, silence had been the weapon she accused me of using. Now it was the only protection she had left. I exited through the side door with Naomi and Rachel. The snow reflected so much light that my eyes watered. Students crossed the quad between narrow corridors carved through the drifts. Removal machines growled near the library. The campus slept. Damaged but alive. Naomi bumped my shoulder with hers. You okay? I don't know yet. That's honest. Rachel handed me her card. The demand letter is not an order. Do not pay anything. Send me whatever their attorney sends next. What about the signatures? That is now bigger than a student complaint. Let Northridge and the university decide their next steps. Your job is to preserve your records and stay out of direct contact. Stay out of direct contact. It sounded so easy when she said it. For years, every problem in Madison's life had crossed the apartment and landed in my lap. Her late rent became my temporary advance. Her forgotten charger became my dead battery. Her missed deadline became my evening of editing. Her hunger became my grocery bill. Distance had once seemed cruel. Now it felt like an ordinary safety measure. Northridge sent formal notices the following week. The company terminated Madison's contract for breach. It demanded repayment of the retail value of all 12 action packs and required her to reimburse the campaign fees used to produce the false distribution content. Its counsel also asked the resale platform to preserve seller records. The donation platform completed its review 2 days later. More than 90% of the storm donations were refunded before Madison could withdraw them. A smaller amount already transferred to her account became part of a repayment demand. Maple Ridge issued charges for the damaged window, alarm replacement, smoke cleanup, and emergency response costs under the lease. Madison disputed them publicly, then deleted the post after Mrs. Alvarez shared the relevant section with the university. Owen received his $40 back through the payment platform. So did Jasmine and 6 other residents who had purchased items from the free action kit. The refunds were not voluntary. The platform reversed the charges after Northridge documented the source of the goods. Madison called that theft. The company called it restitution. Her parents arrived in Buffalo the next weekend. I did not see them, but I heard about the visit because Madison's father emailed me. The subject line said request to resolve. He introduced himself as Dr. Richard Cole and wrote that his daughter had made serious mistakes under pressure. He said the family was deeply concerned about the long-term effect on her education and mental health. He asked whether I would be willing to provide a statement saying our property arrangement had been informal and confusing. He offered to reimburse my moving expenses. The first version of me would have stared at the offer for hours. $400 had kept me at Maple Ridge in my first life. Now a wealthy man was offering money to blur the same boundary that had killed me. I forwarded the email to Rachel. She replied, "Do not negotiate facts. I will respond that your submitted records speak for themselves." Dr. Cole sent a second message before receiving her response. He wrote that Madison had always been ambitious and sometimes lost perspective. He said public humiliation could permanently damage a young person. He reminded me that compassion was not the same as surrender. That sentence angered me more than the offer. People who benefited from my surrender had always renamed it compassion. I drafted a reply, deleted it, and let Rachel handle the communication. Madison's mother tried a different route. She called my supervisor and asked to speak to her. She claimed I had accessed Madison's private medical purchases through the employee system. The accusation failed quickly. The only pharmacy transaction in my evidence was the one Madison completed at my register in front of Naomi. The receipt had been provided by Madison herself as part of her complaint. Store security footage confirmed the purchase. My supervisor documented the call and instructed staff not to release my schedule. Instead of harming my job, the attempt created another harassment record. That was the pattern now. Every move Madison's side made to pressure me became one more document supporting the need for distance. The university's audit took 6 weeks. It examined 2 years of Madison's creator grant projects. The findings went beyond the winter campaign. She had claimed reimbursement for groceries that appeared in my bank statements. She had used photographs of my childhood apartment in a presentation about her own experience with housing insecurity. She had copied a paragraph from my scholarship essay describing the winter my mother lost work and our electricity was temporarily disconnected. She had submitted photographs of my pantry as proof that her mutual aid program served food-insecure students. She had listed me as a volunteer for 48 hours of service I never performed. The audit office contacted me before releasing its report. "We need to ask about the childhood photographs," the investigator said. My throat tightened. "What about them?" Ms. Cole stated that they depicted a residence where she lived at age 9. "Metadata and family records suggest they came from you." I opened the folder she referenced. The image showed a narrow kitchen with yellow cabinets and a portable heater near the table. My mother stood by the sink in her old grocery store uniform. I was 9 years old, wrapped in a purple coat indoors because the furnace had failed. I had given the photograph to Madison for one reason. In a sophomore communications class, she had needed an image representing economic vulnerability. She promised it would remain inside a private classroom presentation and would be labeled as my family's experience. She cropped out my mother's face and called it her childhood. That photograph appeared in 3 grant applications, a sponsored video, and a fundraising deck. I never authorized public or commercial use, I said. The investigator's voice softened. "We will include that." After the call, I sat at my desk for a long time. My first instinct was shame. The kitchen had been cramped. The cabinets were chipped. The heater was unsafe. I had spent years trying not to let anyone imagine the period when my mother and I counted dollars before buying groceries. Madison had understood that shame and converted it into credibility. Then I looked at the photograph again. My mother was tired, but she was standing. The heater had been borrowed from a neighbor. The coat had come from a church donation. We had survived because people offered help without filming us, billing us, or claiming our experience as their own. There was nothing shameful in the picture. The shame belonged to the person who stole it. I called my mother and told her everything I had hidden. Not the rebirth. I did not know how to explain dying in one life and waking in another. I told her about Madison taking food, using my name, forging signatures, and blaming me during the storm. My mother was silent for so long that I thought the call had dropped. Then she asked, "Why didn't you tell me she was using you? I thought you'd worry." "I am your mother. Worry is part of the job. Feeding a grown roommate is not part of yours." I laughed. And then I cried, not elegantly, not quietly. Months of fear left my body in ugly breaths while my mother stayed on the phone. When I could speak again, she said, "You never have to prove you're generous by going without." I wrote the sentence on a card and placed it above my desk. The audit concluded that Madison had committed repeated material misrepresentation, misuse of university funds, unauthorized use of personal information, and falsification of volunteer and distribution records. Lake Erie State suspended her for 2 semesters. It revoked the prior Student Creator Award. It required repayment of misused grant funds. It barred her from holding positions involving student money, fundraising, or official university media for the remainder of her enrollment. The university did not expel her. Some people online said the punishment was too light. Others called it excessive. I did not join either discussion. The decision was not a public execution designed for my satisfaction. It was a set of consequences attached to documented actions. That was enough. Northridge pursued a civil claim over the falsified campaign and sold goods. The matter ended in a confidential settlement. But resale listings vanished, and the company issued a public statement clarifying that the kits had been intended for free student distribution. The county declined to pursue criminal charges for the indoor stove incident after the residents recovered. But the fire department required Madison to complete a safety course as part of a local diversion process for the alarm tampering citation. Her main social account lost more than half its followers in a month. Brands left first, then viewers who had donated, then the people who had enjoyed her confidence only while it felt effortless. She tried several new versions of the story. In one, she said she had been exploited by a controlling roommate. In another, she claimed influencer culture pressured her into mistakes. In a third, she announced a healing journey centered on accountability. The videos all failed for the same reason. She still described every consequence as something that happened to her. I sold emergency goods meant for students, she never said. I forged signatures, she never said. I refused to buy food because I expected Claire to provide it, she never said. I disabled an alarm because it interrupted my video, she never said. Accountability was only another costume. In March, Madison asked to meet me one final time. The request came through the university's no-contact process, so I could decline without responding directly. I nearly did. The coordinator explained that Madison wanted to return personal files and sign a statement confirming deletion of my photographs. The meeting could occur in an administrative office with staff present. I agreed to 15 minutes. Madison arrived without a camera. It was the first time I had seen her in years without one within reach. She looked thinner. Her hair was shorter. She wore a plain black sweater and held a sealed envelope. A conduct coordinator sat between us. Madison placed the envelope on the table. These are the copies I had. Inside were printouts of my childhood photographs, scholarship essay, old schedule, and several utility bills she had used in grant materials. A signed form stated that digital copies had been deleted from her devices and cloud accounts, subject to verification required by the university. Thank you, I said. She flinched at the formality. Is that all? The meeting is for returning documents. I wanted to explain. The coordinator looked at me. You do not have to hear an explanation. I considered Madison across the table. In my first life, I had died with dozens of explanations trapped inside me. I had wanted to tell everyone that the food was mine, the medicine was mine, the coat was mine, and I had tried to reach the shelter. Now I had no need to force her to understand me, but I wanted to know whether she understood herself. You have 3 minutes, I said. Madison folded her hands. I didn't think the storm would be that bad. That explains not shopping. It doesn't explain the rest. I was angry that you moved without giving me a chance to fix things. I told you. You laughed. I didn't think you were serious. Because, she looked at the table. Because you always came back. There it was again, the raw foundation of our friendship. Not affection. Not loyalty. Predictability. I always came back with groceries. I always opened my wallet. I always chose peace over accuracy. What did you think would happen after I moved? I asked. I thought you'd feel guilty. The coordinator shifted slightly. Madison continued before she could reconsider. I thought the weather would get worse. I'd call. And you'd bring things. Then I could say we had worked it out. And the sponsor kits. I needed the camera. Better equipment meant better campaigns. I thought I could replace the kits later. You submitted fake confirmations before replacing them. I was behind. You charged residents during the storm. I needed money. You had $8,000 in donations pending. They were frozen because of you. She stopped. Neither of us spoke. Madison's eyes filled with tears. See, she whispered. I keep doing that. It was the closest she came to insight, not an apology, not repair, but a moment in which she heard herself blame me and recognized the habit. I did not rush to comfort her. Yes, I said. You do. She wiped her face. I lost everything. You lost things that depended on false claims. My education. My career. My friends. Your suspension ends next year. You can finish your degree. Your career can be something that doesn't require lying. Your friends get to decide whether they trust you. You make it sound simple. It isn't simple. It's yours. She looked at me for a long moment. Do you hate me? I thought of my first body beneath the snow. I thought of the red parka on the shuttle. I thought of the photograph of my mother. The forged signature. And the empty medicine cabinet. I don't organize my life around you anymore. I said. That was more complete than hatred. The coordinator ended the meeting. Madison gathered her coat. At the door. She turned back. You really would have helped if I had asked before the storm, wouldn't you? The question belonged to the person I had been. I told you to shop. I said. I gave you notice. I sent emergency resources. Help was available. What you wanted was for me to make preparation unnecessary. She lowered her eyes and left. I never met with her again. A month after the administrative meeting, Maple Ridge sent me a certified copy of Madison's final move-out inspection. I had not requested it. Mrs. Alvarez included a brief note saying that because Madison had continued to claim I removed shared property and damaged the apartment, management wanted me to have the closing record. Madison had left Maple Ridge before her suspension began. Her parents paid the remaining lease balance, but they refused to renew the unit. The inspection photographs showed a space I barely recognized. The living room rug from the resale listings was gone. The wall where she filmed her videos had dozens of small holes from lights and brackets. The kitchen cabinet above the stove was scorched from the camping flame. In her bedroom, management found stacks of empty product packaging, 3 unopened donation mailers, and a plastic tote containing items marked with other students' names. One item was Naomi's insulated lunch bag. It had disappeared from the pharmacy break room the previous year. Another was Jasmine's portable speaker. Madison had accused a maintenance worker of taking it after a rooftop gathering. There were cosmetics, chargers, scarves, and reusable bottles that people in our social circle had assumed were lost. None were worth enough to create a major case by themselves. Together, they revealed the quiet system beneath Madison's lifestyle. She had not lived cheaply. She had lived by making small thefts too embarrassing to challenge. Mrs. Alvarez arranged returns through the property office. Naomi received her lunch bag in a clear evidence sack and stared at it for a full minute. She watched me search for this. She helped me look under the lockers. That was part of it, I said. Madison had always participated in the search. She helped people question their own memory. She suggested where they might have misplaced things and offered sympathy until asking her felt unreasonable. The university added the recovered property to the conduct file. No one treated a used lunch bag as a life-changing offense. But the pattern mattered. It explained why receipts, photographs, and serial numbers had made her so angry. Records ended the game in which only she remembered who owned what. The student newspaper eventually published a long report about the winter campaign. The reporter asked to interview me 3 times. I declined 3 times. Then agreed to answer factual questions by email on the condition that my childhood history and medical details remain private. The article did not call me a hero. It did not call Madison a monster. It laid out the shipment records, resale listings, emergency alerts, move-out inspection, fundraising statements, and safety report. It included a link to resources for students experiencing food insecurity and a separate explanation of how to prepare responsibly for winter storms. The most quoted paragraph came from a fire captain, not from me. He explained that emergency planning worked only when people followed warnings before conditions became dangerous. Rescue systems were not substitutes for ordinary preparation, and no one should violate a travel ban to deliver items that could have been purchased days earlier. That paragraph ended the last version of Madison's accusation. She could still claim I had been unkind. Kindness was subjective enough to debate forever. She could no longer claim I had caused the emergency. For several weeks, strangers continued to recognize me at the pharmacy. Most were polite. A few asked whether I was the supply girl from the storm. One woman placed 6 cans of soup on the counter and whispered that her sister also treated every boundary as betrayal. I did not become her counselor. I did not tell my whole story. I only said, "Keep your receipts." She laughed. But her eyes filled with tears. The phrase spread among my coworkers as a joke and then as practical advice. Keep your receipts meant more than saving paper. It meant keeping proof of what you had paid, promised, refused, and survived. It meant not relying on the person who benefited from confusion to describe the agreement honestly. Later, I started keeping records without shame. Not because everyone was dangerous, but because clarity protected good relationships too. Naomi borrowed my spare umbrella in April and sent a text before taking it. She returned it the next day, dry, unfolded, with a coffee beside it. The ordinary respect of that exchange nearly made me cry. No accusation, no performance, no suggestion that friendship required me to forget ownership. Just a borrowed object returned to the person who owned it. I began to understand how much of my life with Madison had been abnormal only after normal life replaced it. Spring arrived slowly in Buffalo. Snowbanks shrank into gray islands at the edges of parking lots. Sidewalks reappeared. The lake remained cold, but sunlight stayed later each evening. I finished the semester with the highest grades I had earned since starting college. Without Madison's crises, time returned to me in pieces. The hour I used to spend reminding her about bills became an hour at the library. The money I used to spend replacing shared groceries went into savings. The mental space I used to reserve for anticipating her moods became quiet. I remained at the campus pharmacy, but my supervisor moved me into inventory coordination for several weekly shifts. I had always been good at tracking expiration dates, ordering seasonal products, and spotting inconsistent counts. For the first time, those skills were treated as professional strengths rather than evidence of anxiety. Professor Reed invited me to join a committee redesigning the Winter Resilience Challenge. I declined at first. I did not want my life transformed into another campaign. She adjusted the request. No interviews. No personal story. We need someone to review controls, receipts, consent, distribution records, conflicts of interest. That I could do. The new grant rules required direct recipient verification, item serial tracking, and a prohibition against using private student hardship stories without written consent. No creator could certify their own distributions. Sponsored goods had to be logged through a campus office. The changes were not named after me. I preferred it that way. My mother visited in April. She brought a small framed photograph of the two of us from the same winter Madison had exploited. In this one, we stood outside a community center holding grocery bags. My mother looked exhausted. I looked proud because someone had given me a cup of hot chocolate. You don't have to display it, she said. I placed it on my desk. I want to. I renewed the studio lease. The nursing student's clinical placement became permanent, and the landlord offered me the unit for another year. The rent was still $400 more than my old room at Maple Ridge. I signed without hesitation. The cost was not only for square footage. It paid for a lock no one tested at 2 in the morning. It paid for a refrigerator where food remained until I ate it. It paid for shelves that did not become communal property because someone pointed a camera at them. It paid for the ordinary luxury of knowing that a charged power bank would still be charged when I needed it. The following December, almost 1 year after the storm, another lake effect warning appeared on my phone. Heavy snow was possible. Travel conditions could change rapidly. Students were encouraged to prepare. I read the alert once. Then I checked my supplies. Soup, oats, rice, pasta, canned vegetables, crackers, powdered milk, first aid items, cold medicine, flashlight, batteries, hand warmers, thermal blankets, radio, and battery station. Nothing excessive, nothing decorative, nothing purchased for an audience. I replaced 2 expired items and charged the power bank. At the grocery store, a first-year student stood in front of the canned soup looking overwhelmed. Her basket held instant noodles, a flashlight, and 3 different types of batteries. Do you know which ones fit this? She asked, holding up the flashlight. I checked the label. The package with the blue strip. She picked it up. Everyone online says not to panic. Buying what you'll use for several days isn't panic. I said. Just don't clear the shelf. She put 4 cans of soup into her basket and left the rest. The first flakes drifted beneath the parking lot lights. I drove home before the roads worsened. The storm lasted 2 days. Not 7. Campus opened on time. The power never failed. None of my preparations became necessary. That did not make them foolish. I made tomato soup on the second evening because I wanted it. I wrapped myself in the blue blanket and watched snow collect on the window ledge. My phone remained quiet. No one demanded food. No one called my boundaries violence. No one asked me to prove generosity by risking myself. The radiator clicked on, warm and ordinary. I looked at the shelves above the kitchenette. For most of my life, I had believed safety came from having enough to share. Madison taught me the darker version of that belief. If I had enough, someone would always insist they deserved it more. If I prepared, I was selfish. If I gave, I had never given enough. If I stopped, I was responsible for every consequence that followed. I understood now that preparation was not a promise to rescue everyone who refused to prepare for themselves. It was not a public resource simply because someone else could see it. It was not fear arranged in plastic bins. It was care made visible, care for the body that had once frozen 2 blocks from home, care for the mother who had taught me to stretch soup across 3 meals, care for the future version of me who might face closed roads and empty stores. I was not hurting anymore. I was simply done letting other people call my preparations selfish. Surviving on everything I provided.